The kingdom of Vorthris was dying. The once thriving planet now lay in ruin, its vast cities shattered, and its people starving. The alien princess, Lyra, stood at the edge of her royal balcony, gazing at the smoke rising from the capital's ruins. The rebellion had been relentless, and the enemy forces were closing in on the last stronghold of her people. If she didn't act soon, the kingdom of Vorthris would be lost forever. Inside the palace, the whispers were growing louder. Her advisors were no help, all of them suggesting different plans, none of which were certain to save her people. Desperation gnawed at Lyra's heart. She was the last of the royal bloodline, and the weight of her ancestors' legacy pressed heavily on her. She could feel the eyes of the entire kingdom on her, waiting for her to find a way to save them. But there was no easy solution. The princess had tried everything. She had pleaded for help from neighboring kingdoms, but their rulers were either too weak or too afraid to offer assistance. The ancient alliance with the Earth humans had long since crumbled, and now there was no one left to turn to. Her people had turned against her too, doubting her ability to lead. They saw only a young, inexperienced ruler, not the powerful sovereign she was meant to be. Just when all seemed lost, a forbidden thought crossed Lyra's mind. There was one last hope, one desperate measure she had always sworn against, claiming a human consort. In the past, the Vorthris royal family had married into other alien races, never to humans. The idea of a human joining their bloodline was unthinkable. The humans were considered too chaotic, too unpredictable. But the more Lyra thought about it, the more she realized that she had no choice. A human consort might be the key to saving her kingdom. If she could find the right man, someone with strength, courage, and the will to fight, she could turn the tide of the war. But where could she find such a person? Humans were scattered across the galaxy, living their own lives, completely unaware of the struggle happening on Vorthris. Her kingdom needed a miracle, and she was about to make the most dangerous decision of her life. Lyra paced back and forth in her chambers, trying to push the fear from her mind. The kingdom's fate depended on the decision she would make next. She couldn't afford to hesitate any longer. She had to find her human consort. The decision had been made. The emissaries were dispatched, and the princess's orders were clear: bring back a human. But the journey to Earth was long, and Lyra couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gripped her every time she thought about it. She knew this path was fraught with dangers, both political and personal, but it was the only chance she had to save her kingdom. Lyra gathered her most trusted advisors in the Grand Council room, a somber mood hanging over the palace. She had no time for indecision. "We've lost too much already," she said, her voice calm yet laced with the weight of her words. "The time for hesitation is over. The human consort is our only hope." There were murmurs of disbelief among the advisors. One of them, an elder named Voris, spoke up with hesitation in his voice. "Princess, this is madness. To choose a human as your consort would be a betrayal of our entire culture. They are not worthy of your station. They are too primitive, too unrefined to be part of our royal bloodline." Lyra's eyes narrowed. She knew this argument was coming, but it didn't make it any easier to hear. "I understand your concerns, Voris, but if we do not act swiftly, the rebellion will overrun the last of our defenses, and everything we've built will be destroyed. I will do whatever it takes to save my people, even if it means breaking with tradition." Her voice was steady, but inside, she felt a whirlwind of emotions. She had been raised to believe in the superiority of her people, to never settle for less. Yet here she was, contemplating a union that would forever change the future of her kingdom. As Lyra spoke, her mind flashed back to the human myths she had heard as a child. The stories of their tenacity, their courage against impossible odds. She didn't fully understand what made them so resilient, but she had seen enough to know that, somehow, they were different. Maybe they were the key to what her kingdom needed. "The emissaries will find a worthy candidate," she said, silencing the room. "The human I choose will not be an ordinary one. He will be someone who can stand beside me as an equal and lead our people to victory." Despite her firm words, doubt lingered in her heart. What if the human consort failed her? What if he wasn't as strong or as capable as she hoped? What if the alliance failed before it even began? But she had no choice. The galaxy watched her, and her people were relying on her. She needed to find the right human, someone who could stand up to the challenges ahead, someone who could become her partner in saving the kingdom. The emissaries had their orders. Soon, a human would be brought before her, whether he was ready or not, and the fate of her people rested in their hands. Alex Walker had no idea how his life was about to change. One minute, he was a simple soldier stationed in a quiet military base on Earth, carrying out routine patrols. The next, everything he knew was ripped away. He woke up to an unbearable dizziness, his vision spinning wildly as he tried to process his surroundings. The cold, steel walls of his barracks were gone. The sounds of Earth, the distant hum of machinery, the chatter of his comrades, had faded. Now, there was nothing but the eerie silence of space. He tried to move, but his limbs felt heavy, as if shackled by invisible chains. Panic rose in his chest. "What's happening?" he muttered, trying to gather his bearings. His heart raced, and his mind screamed for answers. Then, before him, a hologram flickered to life. It was a projection of a regal alien figure, one who didn't look like anything he had ever seen in his wildest dreams. The creature had shimmering green skin, sharp features and eyes that seemed to glow with an intense fire. It was beautiful in a way that was almost unnerving. The figure spoke with an undeniable authority. "Human." The voice rang out, smooth and commanding. "You are now part of something far greater than yourself. You have been chosen to help save an empire, to save a kingdom on the brink of destruction." Alex could barely comprehend what he was hearing. His mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle, but nothing made sense. What? Where am I? What's going on? The hologram flickered again, and a new image appeared, a view of an alien world, vast and sprawling, with towering structures and swirling clouds of gas. The beauty of the planet was almost overwhelming. But Alex couldn't focus on that now. His heart pounded, and all he could think about was one thing. Why was he here? "This is Fortress, the home of the royal family," the voice continued. "Your presence here is critical. The Princess of Fortress needs your help, and you must become her consort to restore her kingdom. Only you can save us." Alex stood frozen, staring at the hologram in disbelief. He had always been just a regular soldier, not some hero from a storybook. And now he was being thrust into the middle of a cosmic war. His thoughts raced, but one question kept repeating itself. How could a simple human like him possibly help save an alien kingdom? Before he could speak, the hologram disappeared, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Panic started to sink in. There was no turning back. He had been chosen, and whether he liked it or not, his fate was now tied to a princess from a distant star. The cold metal doors in front of him slid open, and two towering alien guards stepped inside. Their eyes glowed with strange energy as they motioned for him to follow. Alex had no choice but to obey. The moment he stepped forward, he realized that nothing in his life could have prepared him for what was to come next. Alex couldn't believe what was happening. The cold, metallic corridor seemed endless as he was escorted by the alien guards through the massive vessel. Every step he took echoed in the silence, heightening the tension that gripped his chest. His mind kept racing, questioning everything. Why him? What did he have that could possibly help save an alien kingdom? Finally, the guard stopped in front of a grand chamber. Its enormous doors were made of some gleaming, translucent material that seemed to shimmer with an ethereal glow. Alex's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment he would meet the alien princess. The fate of an entire kingdom rested on a stranger who had no idea what he was doing. The doors slowly opened, revealing a magnificent throne room. The room was filled with intricate alien architecture, with high ceilings and walls adorned with glowing symbols that shifted in the light. At the far end of the room stood a throne made of black stone, its surface reflecting the faint light from above. And sitting on that throne, as regal and commanding as any ruler from Earth's history, was Princess Lyra. She looked as magnificent as the stories had described, tall, with shimmering skin that glowed faintly, and eyes that held the weight of 1,000 years of wisdom. Her presence was undeniable, a quiet power radiating from her that made the air itself feel heavy. Alex's throat went dry. He had no idea how to approach her, how to even speak. His heart was still pounding in his chest from the surreal nature of everything. The princess stared at him with an unreadable expression. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was unbearable, filled with 1,000 unspoken questions. Finally, Lyra spoke, her voice as smooth and steady as the deep ocean. "Human," she said, "you are here because our kingdom is dying. I was left with no choice but to turn to Earth, to you. You will be the one who saves us." Alex swallowed hard. "I don't know what I can do. I'm just a soldier." Lyra stood from her throne, her movements graceful and fluid. She walked toward him, her eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made his knees almost buckle. "You don't need to be a hero, Alex. You need only to be yourself. Together, we can save Vorthris." Her words, simple as they were, hit him like a bolt of lightning. She was right. He wasn't a hero, but he could fight. And maybe, just maybe, that was all it would take. But even as Lyra spoke with calm determination, there was an underlying sense of urgency. Alex could see it in her eyes. She was carrying the weight of an entire kingdom on her shoulders. There was no time for hesitation, no time for self-doubt. The rebellion would not wait. Before Alex could respond, Lyra motioned for him to follow. The guards led him to another room, one filled with unfamiliar technology, machines that hummed and pulsed with energy. She turned to him, her expression softening for the first time. "Here, you will learn what you need to know," she said. "We will begin the training at once." Alex nodded, though uncertainty still lingered in his mind. He didn't understand how he was supposed to help her, but he knew one thing. He couldn't back out now. Not after everything that had happened. Not after the weight of her words. The Princess of Vorthris was depending on him, and for the first time in his life, Alex felt the responsibility of a destiny far greater than anything he had ever imagined. The days that followed were a blur of unfamiliar sights and sounds. Alex felt like a pawn in a game he didn't understand, forced into a world where nothing made sense. The princess, Lyra, remained a constant presence in his life. Always calm, always focused. She was determined, but Alex could see the cracks in her armor. Behind her unyielding composure, there was a hint of fear, a fear that the rebellion would be their undoing. Each morning, Lyra guided him through the royal palace, showing him the technology that powered Vorthris and the sophisticated weaponry her people had designed for war. Alex had never seen anything like it before. The machines hummed with an otherworldly energy, their sleek, metallic surfaces pulsing as though alive. It was impressive, but Alex couldn't help but notice the tension in the air. The rebellion was closing in, and Lyra's people were growing desperate. At night, Lyra would retreat to her chamber, her mind heavy with the weight of her kingdom's future. But she never let it show in front of Alex. It was as if she were always 2 steps ahead, controlling the narrative, maintaining her power. And yet, Alex could tell that beneath it all, she was just a woman trying to save everything she held dear. One evening, as they stood overlooking the vast, dying cityscape of Vorthris, Lyra spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if we can win this war, Alex. We've tried everything, but nothing seems to work. The rebellion is too strong. My people are losing hope, and so am I. I never imagined I would be forced to resort to this, relying on a human consort to save my kingdom." Her words hit Alex hard. He hadn't known the weight Lyra carried. She was more than a princess. She was the last hope for an entire race, an entire planet. The responsibility had been thrust upon her since birth, and it had only grown heavier with each passing day. He didn't know what to say, but he couldn't stand there in silence while she suffered. "I don't know how much help I'll be, but I'll fight. I'll do whatever it takes. You didn't choose me by mistake." Lyra turned to face him, her eyes searching his for sincerity. "You really think you can help? A human? What could you possibly bring to the table that my people haven't already tried?" Alex stood tall, meeting her gaze. "You brought me here for a reason. Maybe you can't see it yet, but I'm not some ordinary soldier. I know how to fight, how to rally people, how to lead. And that's what you need. You need a partner, someone who believes in the cause as much as you do. We're in this together." For the first time since his arrival, Alex saw a flicker of something like hope in Lyra's eyes. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make him feel like he wasn't completely out of his depth. Maybe, just maybe, together they could find a way to turn the tide of this war. Lyra took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. "I don't have much time. Alex, the rebellion is coming faster than we anticipated. If we fail now, Vorthris is lost." "I won't let that happen," Alex said, the weight of his promise settling over him. "I'm here to stay, whatever it takes." And with those words, something shifted between them. The princess and the human soldier were no longer strangers bound by circumstance. They were allies, partners. Together, they would fight to save her kingdom, no matter what it cost them. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation. Alex, still unfamiliar with the alien technology, worked alongside Lyra's best engineers and strategists to understand the weapons they would use against the rebellion. He learned quickly, his natural instinct for tactics and leadership proving valuable. But even with his newfound knowledge, there was an undercurrent of doubt that lingered in the air. The rebellion's strength seemed overwhelming, and the hope Lyra had once held onto was slowly fading. Lyra's chambers were always filled with maps and tactical displays, the constant hum of war on the horizon. She spent long hours hunched over schematics, her brow furrowed, calculating the next move for her kingdom's survival. She was a queen in every sense of the word, commanding, focused, but every so often, Alex would catch the exhaustion in her eyes, the unspoken weariness of ruling a kingdom teetering on the brink of destruction. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a red glow across the palace, Alex found Lyra standing alone on the balcony. Her gaze was fixed on the horizon, her mind clearly miles away. He stepped forward, the cool air brushing against his face, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "The rebellion is moving faster than we thought. They've already breached the outer defenses. We have only days, maybe hours, before they reach the heart of the kingdom." Alex felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had known it was coming, but hearing the princess speak those words out loud made it feel all too real. There was no more time for hesitation. He couldn't wait any longer. "I'm ready," Alex said, his voice steady. "We'll stop them, Lyra. You don't have to carry this burden alone anymore." Lyra turned to face him, her eyes searching his, looking for something, reassurance, perhaps, or a flicker of the same hope she had seen in him when they first met. There was a moment of quiet understanding between them, an unspoken connection that went deeper than words. "You still don't understand the full scope of what's at stake, do you?" she asked softly. Alex took a deep breath, his voice unwavering. "No, I don't. But I do know this. I've never backed down from a fight, and I won't start now." Lyra's gaze softened for just a moment, a brief flicker of admiration crossing her face. But then, as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, replaced by the hard resolve that had defined her since the beginning. "Then come with me," she said, her voice commanding once more. "We have a battle to win." The two of them made their way to the war room, where the final preparations were underway. Lyra's generals stood at attention, their faces grim, but there was a sense of urgency in their movements. The rebellion was nearly upon them, and every minute counted. Alex could feel the tension in the air, the heavy weight of what they were about to face. The plan was simple but dangerous. The rebellion had breached the outer perimeter, but they were still a few miles from the capital's heart. Lyra had made the difficult decision to take the battle to them. A strike at the heart of their forces would disrupt their momentum, and buy them the time they needed to secure the kingdom. Alex had learned to trust Lyra's judgment, but even he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The rebellion would be expecting this. The risk was immense, but they had no choice. It was now or never. As the War Council concluded, Lyra turned to Alex, her gaze steady. "Are you ready, human?" she asked, her voice laced with a quiet intensity. Alex's response was simple, but his determination was unmistakable. "I was born ready." With that, they moved out to join the troops, preparing for the final confrontation. The fate of Vorthris, and the future of their world, would be decided in the hours to come. And Alex, once a soldier on Earth, was now fighting for the survival of a kingdom, his life intertwined with the princess's, as they both faced an uncertain future. The hours before the battle felt like a lifetime. The atmosphere in the war room was heavy with the weight of impending doom. Alex and Lyra, now fully immersed in their roles, stood side by side, staring at the glowing holographic map of the kingdom. The rebellion was drawing closer, and every last move would determine the fate of Vorthris. Alex felt a strange sense of calm amidst the chaos. He wasn't an alien prince or a legendary warrior. He was just a human, thrust into an impossible situation. Yet here he was, preparing for a battle that could decide the future of a kingdom. The fear that had once gripped him was gone, replaced by a fierce resolve. He had to protect this world, just as much as he had fought to protect his own. Lyra stood beside him, her regal bearing unwavering as always, but even she seemed slightly affected by the weight of what was to come. The kingdom depended on them, but this final act could break everything she had worked for. Alex could sense it. The princess was fighting an internal battle, the realization that her fate, and perhaps that of her entire race, rested in the hands of a human she had only just met. The evening sky outside the war room had turned dark, the final hours of the countdown slipping away. The entire city seemed on edge. Outside, Alex could hear the distant hum of the fleet's engines, the sound of the rebellion's approach. It was time. Lyra turned to him, her gaze intense. "The battle will begin soon. This is our chance. If we fail, Vorthris will fall, and all hope will be lost." Alex nodded, meeting her eyes. There was no turning back now. "We won't fail," he said firmly. "I'm with you, Lyra. We do this together." Her lips parted in what might have been a smile, though it was fleeting. "I wish I had more time to prepare you for what you'll face. This is no ordinary battle. The rebels have learned more about us than we anticipated. They know our strengths, but more importantly, they know our weaknesses." Alex didn't flinch. He had faced impossible odds before. This wouldn't be any different. "Then we'll make sure they know they picked the wrong fight. Let's show them what we're made of." The tension between them shifted for a brief moment, a shared understanding that was more than words. It was the bond of two warriors standing together, ready to fight for what was right. The princess and the human soldier, two people from different worlds, united by fate and purpose. As the final hour arrived, Alex and Lyra joined their forces, preparing for the clash. They stood at the front, watching as their troops geared up, the alien technology humming with life, ready to face the rebellion head-on. The warships prepared to launch, and soldiers took their positions. It was all or nothing. Alex couldn't help but feel a deep connection to these people, these beings he had once seen only as distant alien creatures. They were his allies now, their lives intertwined with his. Lyra's people had put their trust in him, and he wouldn't let them down. The distant rumble of engines grew louder, signaling the arrival of the enemy. The rebellion was here. Lyra turned to him once more, her eyes shining with determination. This is it. Are you ready? Alex's heart pounded in his chest as he nodded. Ready. The sky above them darkened further as the first wave of the rebellion's forces descended upon the kingdom. The battle for Vorthris was about to begin. As the first shots were fired, chaos erupted. The ground shook with the force of explosions, and the battle raged on, both sides giving it everything they had. But Alex fought with a fire he had never known before. He fought for Lyra, for her people, and for a future that still held hope. Together, they would face whatever came, standing side by side. And no matter what happened, they knew they had already won something. They had proven that when it came down to it, they could rely on each other, two unlikely allies, bound together by fate and determination. The fight for Vorthris was far from over, but the princess and the human had made their stand.